Hi and welcome to a Cup of Dhamma, where we chat about Buddhist teachings over a hot beverage. My name's Jana, and from a Buddhist perspective, I'm basically an addict. And I'd like to start this chat by proposing to you the possibility that, with very few exceptions, pretty much all of us are. Let's see what you think about it by the time we finished our coffee. So let's talk about addiction. We all know and can see every day all around us that the mind is prone to addiction. Perhaps you've been addicted yourself, or you're still grappling with it, or you know people who are addicted, or ones who fought their way out with tremendous effort. We can become addicted to all kinds of things around us. Substances like alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, prescription drugs, sugar, or behaviors like sex, gambling, overeating, obsessive cleaning, social media. The brain has several pleasure pathways that are basically sitting there waiting to light up when something feels good. And when they do, the brain goes, yes, please, more of that. And then very helpfully, it starts rewiring itself to make sure you come back for more. It essentially rolls out a welcome mat for the addiction and builds it a little home. So thank you so much, brains. The point is that getting hooked is literally built into our hardware. In the cases where addiction has really taken hold, nothing else except the next hit ends up mattering. Some people lose everything, their health, livelihood, their family. The way addiction can ensnare and enslave us is really, really powerful and frankly, very frightening. So if you want to stay at a safe distance from all of this, life can sort of feel like a tightrope walk over a field of traps. But even if we've managed to avoid or escape all those pitfalls, the Buddha has some sobering news. Basically, the entire world, meaning everything we experience with our five senses and our conscious mind, is one huge trap of the same kind. Without realizing it, we are all addicted, mired up to our necks in a realm that keeps us hooked via our senses. Welcome to the desire realm, known in Pali as Kāmaloka. As humans, we were born into and designed for this specific realm. There are other realms in Buddhist cosmology, but this is the one we humans inhabit, and we share it with animals, among other beings. The desire realm is defined by a torrent of sensory input: sights, sounds, tastes, textures, smells, and mental objects that speak directly to the organic equipment we came with: our eyes, ears, tongue, skin, nose, and brain. We are a bit like desire detection machines, perfectly built to be entranced. This is exactly what the Buddha realized at the moment of his enlightenment. He looked out at the world and saw beings completely intoxicated by their senses. Imagine being the only sober person at a party where everyone is absolutely off their heads. That's roughly the situation. So it took some convincing from a deity called Brahma Sahampati, and I'm sorry, but every single time I hear that name, I think of Humpty Dumpty. I can't help it. Who basically said, please teach, not everyone is beyond reach. Some beings only have a little dust in their eyes. They just need someone to show them. Now I realize that congratulations, you're an addict in a cosmic trap is perhaps not the most cheerful thing to hear before you finished your coffee. But the Buddha's intention here is genuinely kind. He did end up teaching, and he points at what's wrong because he can see the way out. So here we are, in the desire realm, doing our thing, each of us trying to get on in life and find our little piece of happiness. We seek happiness using our senses. We seek out things we like. We try to avoid things we don't. We're just muddling along, convinced that our personal fulfillment is just a few items away on our to-do list. Get a job that we actually like doing and that pays well. Get a partner that truly, really gets us. Get the house or flat. get the praise, the validation, get the thing that we saw advertised at one time that seems to really promise to complete us, and then we'll be fine. We'll finally be able to relax. We've all had that thought. Some of us have had that thought about a specific sofa. But will we be fine? As Ajahn Brahmali puts it, the common denominator in all of this is that we seem to need to seek out and find things to complete us, because on our own we apparently feel not whole, not fulfilled. Why is that? Why does the mind keep casting around looking for the next thing? Why are we always on the move, never staying still? Why can't we just get to a point where we're good and satiated and live peacefully and contentedly? Well, have you ever known an addict who is feeling peaceful and content? If we look honestly at addiction, we know there is no point at which it is ever enough. Addiction feeds on itself and is never full. Even when we do something we've worked hard for and really wanted, if we're honest with ourselves, the feeling of elation doesn't last long. For example, all the hard work has paid off and we finally get that job promotion we so desperately hoped for. But once we've settled into our new role, the euphoria we felt is a thing of the past. We buy new things and the appreciation for each gadget or pair of shoes lasts only briefly. These days, sometimes not even 30 minutes. Or we scroll through our phones looking for the next funny or interesting thing to pique our interest. Then we get bored. Then we go on to the next video and the next and the next and so on. If you look the truth in the eye and really investigate without buying into what everyone with a stake in your time and money wants you to believe, you will come to the conclusion that this type of fulfillment of our sense desires never lasts. There is no point at which desire says, enough. The hamster wheel never stops. But we keep running on it because we don't know what else to do. This is all we know. This is the nature of tanhā, craving. The word literally means thirst. The Buddha described 3 main types. Craving for sensual pleasures, kāma tanhā, craving for existence and becoming, which drives rebirth, bhava tanhā, and sometimes craving tips in the opposite direction entirely, a longing for non-existence, for annihilation, for everything to just stop, vibhava tanhā. All 3 are forms of the same restless, impulsive thirst. Ajahn Brahmali uses a river or stream as a metaphor for craving. Picture yourself on a raft, floating downstream. Sometimes it's genuinely lovely. The sun is out, the scenery is beautiful, and you're in no hurry to get anywhere. You feel at ease, even in control. What you don't notice is that the river is doing the moving, not you, and the current has its own destination in mind. This is craving, always active, always pulling, never still. And we identify with it so completely that we mistake its restlessness for our own vitality and self-expression. The ego loves to be doing and craving are in the end 2 sides of the same coin. And what we don't see is that downriver, the current gets faster and the water's choppier. If we blindly follow craving and really give into it, things get coarser and coarser. You can see this in addiction. An alcoholic at first doesn't need much to feel good. But as things progress, the craving gets harsher and more insistent, requiring more and more to achieve the same relief, taken to another level, then another, then another. The current of the river gets stronger, faster, and carries us directly towards danger. But what exactly is the danger downriver? The deeper problem with craving is what it causes us to do. Because we crave things in the sensory world, we want to grab hold of them. We try to grasp them, make them ours, cling to them. In Pali, this grasping is called upādāna, which means fuel, sustenance, or the act of feeding, and it arises directly out of tanhā. Craving gives rise to clinging. The Buddha identifies 4 types of upādāna. Sensuality clinging is the grip we have on sensory pleasure. Take this coffee, for example. I am absolutely clinging to it, not just to the taste, but to everything it represents. The warmth, the coziness, the particular feeling of waking yourself up gently while simultaneously relaxing. The idea of this coffee, if I'm honest, is better than the actual sips. View clinging is attachment to our opinions about how the world works and the inability to just hold them loosely. Politics is the obvious modern example. Most people don't just have political opinions anymore. They are their political opinions. It's become identity, tribe, self, which is why political disagreements feel so visceral and so personal. You're not just challenging someone's position on tax policy, you're challenging them. Or think of someone older who has spent a lifetime building this coherent picture of how the world works, and now the world is changing in ways that don't fit the picture, and it's changing so fast. So the clinging of older generations isn't stubbornness exactly, it's that loosening the view feels like loosening their self. Habit and practice clinging is a rigid attachment to how things should be done. The belief that a particular method, routine, or ritual is the right one, and discomfort or irritation when it isn't followed. This can be as mundane as the laundry must be done this way, the shirts must be folded just so, and if someone in the household does it differently, it's objectively wrong. Some of us are this person, some of us know someone like this, but there's also a subtler modern version, for example, wellness and productivity culture. The belief that if you find the right morning routine, use the right app, swallow the right supplements, do the right combination of cold plunges and green juice, you will finally feel on top of life and at peace. The ritual starts to become necessary, and if we can't do it, we're not okay. That's clinging to habits and practices. Doctrine of self-clinging is the deepest one. Attachment to the story of who and what we are. Social media has made this one extraordinarily visible. The curated Instagram or LinkedIn self is this near-perfect modern object of self-clinging, a constructed identity that must be maintained, defended, and validated by metrics. When the likes don't come or the numbers dip, people suffer in a way that feels disproportionate until you realize it's not vanity, it's that the self was built on that platform and it feels genuinely threatened. Related to this is what's been called the main character phenomenon, the tendency to experience your own life as a story in which you are the protagonist. Everything that happens is meaningful and directed at you, and the universe owes you a particular story arc, which is self-clinging taken to its logical conclusion. And also, if we're honest, something most of us do a little bit here and there. As you can see, sense desire doesn't just refer to pretty, pleasurable things. We also cling to our families, our habits, our identity, our political views, our way of life, our very sense of who we are. We live in a world where everything is conditioned, meaning it is always changing and cannot by its very nature be held onto. I will make a separate video on this to explain it further. The sense objects we desire, sights, sounds, textures, and so forth, are ephemeral and hence literally ungraspable. Everything we clutch at slips through our fingers eventually. So what happens when we try to hold onto things that are inherently ungraspable? We are setting ourselves up for dukkha, for suffering, hurt, disappointment, loss. And there's another problem, perhaps even more serious. There are over 8 million species of animals on this planet, plus over 8 billion of us humans. Pretty much all of us are subject to craving, meaning we all want a piece of the sensory world. As Ajahn Brahmali points out, we live in a realm where everyone wants more. So conflict and competition are inherent. It's inevitable. Craving leads to ill will, violence, greed, and the kind of willful stupidity that comes from following desire wherever it leads. It leads to pretty much all the problems that we see in the world today. So what do we do about all of this? How do we go against the current? How do we find our way out of our addiction and our enslavement by the senses? We follow the path of the Buddha. We use the powers of reflection and of developing our minds through meditation. But it's important to note that reflection comes before meditation. We need fairly healed minds where we've already built up our kindness, compassion, morality a little bit in order to be able to meditate. And 50% of the work is simply seeing craving for what it really is. Observe yourself. Observe your own mind. Notice how craving arises, how the pressure builds up, what happens when you give into it, how long does the good feeling last, and what happens when you don't give into it. Once you've started laying that foundation, you've begun to slowly move against the current. The current has slowed down. And then, as Ajahn Brahmali describes it, eventually, once you've developed the path for a good while, something remarkable becomes possible. You leave the river of craving altogether, because it turns out there is another river, a completely different one, the Dhamma stream. And unlike the first river, this one actually goes somewhere worth going. Speaking of living a spiritual life, he says, I've seen it very clearly in my own life how these things weaken over time. Actually, you become a more good-hearted person over time, gradually developing. And then eventually there comes a day when you are so pure it's almost no effort at all to paddle that raft anymore. And suddenly one day you have a deep meditation, a deep insight into the nature of reality, and boom, you enter a new stream, going in exactly the opposite direction, going not towards a whirlpool, not a shark, not a monster, not a saltwater crocodile, but going towards all the good things that you ever wanted in life. Everything you always were looking for. You have entered the stream of the Dhamma, moving in the right direction. And now there is no turning back. There is only one goal for you, and that is the highest happiness of the world. So, even though we are in the desire realm, kind of built for and primed to feed on desire, we can stop that feeding and we can find our way to freedom. Craving and clinging are what cause dukkha. So this is what we learn to gently, patiently let go of. We can find our way out of our addiction. When craving and clinging fall away, what's left is freedom and clarity. And in that clarity, something unexpected happens. We actually experience life more fully, not less. The sunset is more beautiful when we're not desperately trying to hold on to it. The meal is more enjoyable when we're not already thinking about the next one. The person in front of us is more real when we're not projecting our needs onto them. We become more generous, more present, more genuinely kind. And here's something radical about the happiness the Dhamma points to. Nobody has to lose for you to have it. It's not a finite resource. It doesn't require competition, comparison, or anyone else's defeat, which means that violence and conflict become not just wrong, but simply unnecessary. So to conclude, my name is Jana, and I'm an addict. And after everything we've covered today, I hope you're at least entertaining the possibility that you might be one too. Not as a reason to feel bad, but as a reason to feel curious and to pay attention and to perhaps get interested in the path. If you'd like, I invite you to look around for the rest of the day. Notice how desire functions as the master narrative of pretty much everything around us. Films, books, advertising, the plot of almost every song ever written. It's everywhere once you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. And please, the next time you see someone visibly fighting with addiction and feel that sense of Thank goodness that's not me. Remember the raft. You're on it too. Same river, same raft. You've just got a more socially acceptable substance. The goal isn't to get better at feeding our desires, it's to put them down. Not the freedom of desire, which is just craving in sheep's clothing, and which the whole world is busy selling, but freedom from desire. That's the only freedom that actually holds up, and that is real. Thank you so much for joining me for this Cup of Dhamma. If you have any suggestions, comments, etc., drop them below, please. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you next time.